In 3, 2, 1.
John, are we live?
We're live, sir.
What's going on, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How are you?
Good. You did like a marathon dash of getting over here, getting the studio set up because we had reset the studio up. I'm glad we're live.
Yeah, man. Fun stuff.
What's going on?
Well, I'm in a very good mood.
Oh,
Per
that's
the
rare.
usual.
What's going on?
Oh, come on now.
Jitters.
I am leaving on vacation Saturday morning. So a very good friend of the show, Tim Lachey from Arizona, and his beautiful wife. The two of them, my prettier half, Miss Maggie, and I are going to far prettier, going to Punta Cana.
Cool. So
I'm feeling pretty good. Got running late today. Just been running all over and just got locked out of the building. So sorry we're late, folks, but we're here now.
Yeah. So shout outs to Tim.
My shout out is to Maggie, actually,
okay,
and
cool.
Nadine. Maggie and Nadine really set the trip up. They did all the planning, asked us a couple questions, but they really took care of everything. And we're very excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going on vacation too. I'm going to Las Vegas with my dad, which is everyone I've been telling I'm going to Las Vegas with my dad is like, oh, it's like different than the guys trip. I'm like, no. He's like a bachelor party on steroids.
Nice.
It's like I'm his dad when we go there.
I mean, from the stories I've heard from you already.
Yeah, it's the opposite. But my shout out, usually they're pretty happy shout outs. Mm-hmm. My shout out's not as happy. It's to Jeff, who's my business partner at Main Street. He lost his dad this week. So they're over there, and his dad, Alan, is an incredible guy. And he's such a cool dude that yesterday, I guess every Tuesday they have everybody in their small town in Iowa. They literally don't have a street light. They have a blinking light in their town.
Wow.
They show up to Al's bar, which is in his garage, and they drink. So last night, everybody still came in there and started drinking at Al's bar. So I'm going there tomorrow, and I got to drive all the way back from Iowa, so I can't drink, but I'll stop by Al's bar for a second.
Yeah, I saw that on, I guess it was Facebook. And it took me a second, and then I read it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, really super cool dude, and my thoughts to Jeff
Condolences
and his family.
For sure. Absolutely.
I'm excited about today's show. I'm always excited about our shows. But today, we got two guys that can kick our asses pretty easily.
Literally.
And I'm even more excited because our first guest can kick the second guest's butt.
Come on,
second
man.
guest is my buddy
there's
Mike
weight classes
Cannon,
for a reason.
and he kicks all of our butts. But my first guest, he's the PFL Middleweight Champion of the world. He just won the recent PFL Middleweight $1 million Grand Prix. Lewis Taylor is a Chicago native. He's 13-1 in his last 14 fights. I think I got that right. I Wikipedia'd that, so I could be wrong, which is really hard to do in today's high-level MMA world. It's actually incredibly difficult to do. He's a Chicago native. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I love my city, so I love doing anything I can to support it.
Yeah, so when we actually started WheelHouse, one of the things John and I wanted to do was showcase local Chicago entrepreneurs, influencers, people in Chicago like you who do better stuff for the city of Chicago. So we appreciate you coming on. What got you started in MMA?
Oh, I was a high school wrestling coach, a security guard, and just looked up and wanted more. I was still hungry. I was training young lions like Bilal Muhammad, but I just felt the need to I still had fire. You know, sometimes when you come away from the wrestling mats and you can't wait to get away from it because it's a very hard sport, wrestling is. And I thought I had took a break. I had got nice and fat, but then I jumped back in and looked across the street, saw a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. And from there, I just got busy.
And that's the crazy thing about wrestling is wrestling at a high level. And you were, and again, I could be wrong. I Wikipedia'd this. You were the first person from the Chicago Public Schools to attend the Illinois State Wrestling Championship, right?
Oh, no, I wasn't the first to attend. I was one of the first to place from Public League. And then I did it again the following year.
Awesome. So Wikipedia, fix your stuff. You had it slightly wrong. But it's tough because wrestlers, when wrestling's done, I mean, if you go to college and you wrestle in college, what happens after wrestling? Now MMA, a lot of them go into MMA. Jordan Burroughs was talking about, like, I don't really want to go in the UFC, but now you hear Dana saying, I'd like him to come to the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to get paid, but like Jordan Burroughs and Ben Askren, they're trying to create new outlets where wrestlers can eat, and more than anything in that competition, that's where the platform is for. That's why Ben Askren did it, is so wrestlers can still find another way to eat. You see it being done in jiu-jitsu, but wrestling is something very American, especially when you look at folk style, and and it's dying. And so you need things like wrestling to help grow the sport or keep it alive, to pump steady money into it. And I fought the NCAA for that. I feel like they should let wrestlers make money when we compete at these tournaments.
Yeah, it's crazy how much effort goes into being a wrestler, how much dedication. I mean, there's a great article about how wrestlers end up making such great business people because they're legitimately the most disciplined of athletes. If you're not disciplined, you're definitely not going to be a high-level wrestler. But yeah, there's no money in it. It's crazy.
No. But it could be. But it's a. They try to restrict so much for the certain sports, but when you pay attention to golf, they get purses. Bass fishing, they get purses. Rodeo, they get purses. I feel like wrestling falls right into category where if these tournaments were being held, instead of a medal, can we get a little check?
Sure.
We all go to college and we eating ramen noodle, we eating trash, but trying to compete at the top of levels. And the thing about America is it costs more to eat healthy.
Yeah, much more. So you transitioned from wrestling to MMA, and you've had a great career in MMA, and you just won the PFL Grand Prix, which was a really cool thing to see the whole idea of tournament fighting come back and then actually have a good paycheck in comparison to MMA paychecks.
I mean, it's been a struggle, my career. I've been pretty much kept in the shadows. Those hardcore, MMA guys knew who I was, but mainstream, I had, nobody ever knew who I was. And no matter what I did and how successful I was and who I beat, anytime I beat somebody, that person had a bad night or I got lucky or something like that. For whatever reason, they never valued my skill set because I have a different style of fighting. And they just, I don't fit into a box. But like I tell my students, you're not here to look like every other fighter, You can't train like a robot because there's a counter to everything you do. So you need to have a fight identity, and to be the best, you have to have that fight identity.
So John sometimes writes me love notes on those whiteboards, and those are his questions. John wanted you to explain what the PFL is.
The PFL means Professional Fighters League. It's the first of its kind. It's a place where they are angling towards making fighters represent fighters as professionals, and like a sports league. Some people don't agree with the idea. They don't think it's going to work. Me coming off of a very successful first year, I'm very happy with the PFL format and the opportunity that they're giving to a lot of fighters who've been overlooked, like fighters like myself who found themselves in purgatory, in a sense where you're too good to fight locally and the bigger leagues haven't embraced you.
Yeah, and what a great springboard that is, because the PFL Grand Prix got really good publicity. I was following along the whole time. It was really cool, and I think it, like you said, it showcased a lot of names that you might not have been seeing in UFC or Bellator leading up to that, and now it's an awesome springboard. And I talked to a lot of people who are kind of like fair weather MMA fans, and they think that, now in the whole new Conor McGregor era, people are making tons and tons of money, and they don't realize that that's not true. Conor's making that, and there's some guys that are making a lot of money, but still a lot of fighters are getting tens of thousands to show, tens of thousands to win, and then you have, training fees, management fees. A lot of that gets taken away.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money to be a fighter, and it takes a lot out of you. I was blessed to have a great support through my wife. She put the load on her shoulders, and we did it together. I told her I was done fighting at 36. I'll be 40. I just made 40 this week, May 12th.
Oh, happy birthday.
So thank you. So, without my wife, it would have been even more difficult because I decided to chase this dream at 28, and I said I was going to give it a good run, and I was going to be done at 36. But at 36, I hadn't made it where I wanted to be, but I still had fight in me, So, and even when I went, some guys at 36, they're done. but I still had good strength. When I would go to the gyms, I still give people a hard time. They don't want to see me come in. They don't, so I'm like, I'm the old guy, but as long as you guys don't want to see me, I guess I'm still doing something right.
Well, you don't look like the old guy, and it's crazy, obviously this weekend. Yeah. I mean, well, this weekend we saw, and you might hear Mike. I'll introduce Mike too, because this MMA roundtable might be great to bring Mike in too. Mike Cannon is our other guest. He also fought pro MMA. He's a Chicago firefighter, and he's a business owner. Mike, up. You can bring him up a little bit. He's a wrestler, so he likes to crouch down
the back
a little
problems,
bit.
it's not the...
And you might hear Mike commenting on this, but for both of you, obviously this weekend you had BJ Penn and you had Anderson Silva, guys who were kind of towards the end of their careers, a little bit older, and you saw kind of the falling. What have you done, Lewis, to kind of keep your body in shape and then also stay motivated? I feel like as you age, like that. And I don't want to say the killer instinct's gone. I feel like even me when I was a kid, I was a little more of an aggressive guy. And as you get older, now you said you have kids. What do you do to get yourself both in shape and keep your kind of
it's a support system. It's a feeding thing. Like even when my career wasn't going where it was supposed to be, I had other fighters in the gym, again, like Bilal Muhammad, even Mike and other guys. We come in and we feed off each other. We push each other. And so even when you might not have nothing going, if you can get in there and help somebody else achieve their dream, it keeps you going.
Yeah. How about you, Mike? I mean, you've gotten you're not, how old are you?
32.
32, and you just had your
33.
first little boy w's an absolute adorable little guy. What about you? I mean, what keeps you motivated to stay in shape like that? Because, I mean, I lose that motivation as I've gotten older.
I think it kind of goes back to the whole wrestling mentality. Growing up, you wrestle for so long. Even if you didn't wrestle that long, it's such a grind doing it. When you're done doing it, you're like, man, I want that grind back. You just never lose it. You want it, and it goes back to like, working or business or something like that. Once you wrestle, you never feel like you're going to be satisfied with something you do, and it's the biggest thrill competing or wrestling or just even in the room with these guys. Like I tend to wrestle and train until I'm literally can't move. I mean, I'll get wiser and smarter about it, but I plan on doing this for my entire life.
And Lewis, you do a lot of coaching and training of inner city kids and kids who are at risk as well, correct?
Yeah, I've done, and I've always just tried to keep a door open if you want to walk through it.
Yeah, you're again, I could be wrong. Your nickname used to be Handguns, and you've switched it to Put the Guns Down. What made you make that switch? And I'll let you explain the idea of Put the Guns Down.
Yeah, I still consider myself Lewis Handguns Taylor. That was the nickname, stage name that I came in with. Put the Guns Down is the message that I strive to give everybody who might look up to me and those who know where I'm from. You could always say put the guns down, but people don't know you, so they don't really whatever. But people who know where I'm at, know where I'm from, they know that I'm plagued by violence. There's nothing that pretty much goes on in this city that I don't have an idea. If it's not affecting the shooter or the victim, it's the shooter or something. You always, when you're always touched, the only thing you can lean back on is to just try to be positive and try to, I found myself stepping away from the inner city, and as I stepped away, I don't want to isolate myself, but negativity breeds more negativity. So I found myself in the gym around positive people, and even though some of these people are police officers, firemen, etc., they might carry a gun, but it's hand-to-hand combat. Be a man first, and I believe that a lot of these inner city kids are so scared of a fist fight. They're so scared to lose a fight, or anything. A lot of these guys, they've shot guns, but they've never even, they're too literally, they fear an ass whooping, Yeah. And I feel like put the guns down and, just find yourself as a man before you look for a tool to end the disputes.
Yeah, and it's a great point. I feel like a lot of people would avoid violence if you had to actually get in a hand-to-hand combat situation. And I also feel I obviously cannot fight like you two can. I started karate when I was 4 and eventually did jiu-jitsu, did a little bit of boxing. But when I started at 4, I remember the best thing my parents ever did for me was put me in something martial arts based, because the discipline in it. And then I think you get a very good self-understanding of you don't need to carry an ego. You're not the baddest guy in the room at all times. I mean, you're the baddest guy in this room. But, you know.
I got to start training harder, man. I want this title.
I'm going to keep teasing you about this.
Man.
And then when you leave, he's going to kick my butt. And then you're not going to be here to protect me. But it's, I agree. And it's great that you're taking, you know, your fame and, you know, your success and then bringing it back to the city of Chicago and trying to help out you can because it needs it.
Yeah, it goes back to say, I never walk into any situation thinking I'm the baddest person in there. I think each man stands on equal ground, and if you know, and just a humble respect for each person, and that's again, when you train, you don't have the unnecessary, you know, that need to try to flex or try to intimidate people. And again, that when I meet people like that, that just goes to show you how scared, how that really, they try to act so tough because it's a little boy inside that never grew up.
Yeah. And I saw that the city of Chicago actually had the, on their website, they had a put the guns down link where they're trying to make an initiative to kind of push that put the guns down mindset.
It is. It's there's a I Grow Chicago, which they established their home base on 64th and Honorary, which is the next block over from where I grew up, Walcott, which was 64th and Honorary was deemed the worst block in Chicago for drug, murder, everything else. And so Chicago and the mayor and everybody else, they wanted to go to the heart of the situation and start there. So the Put the Guns Down movement does originate there, and it's still you know, and again, the crime moved to the next block and it spreads, but you're gonna have to keep chasing. It's not gonna just stop, you know, because the violence is inbred, is ongoing, and no one from the outside can tell somebody who is scared to walk outside the door not to carry a gun. But you know, if more people feel like, you know, it can be done, then it'll be less shootings, you know.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. I mean, you've obviously lived through it and you've been there, so you can directly impact people there because they'll listen to you. You know, you've lived through it, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't ever get out of that situation. You had the foresight to begin wrestling, and you took your life to obviously a very successful height now. And I'm sure that there are a lot of kids in that area that probably look up to you at a very, very high level.
And especially now. And again, my message to them is to stop trying to think only football, only basketball. You know, there's other lanes to find your way out of the hood, you know. But unfortunately, life, like most social media, is a popularity contest. Yeah. And so kids, they don't look at soccer. They don't look at tennis. They don't look at, I'm like, you're athletic. It's in you. Focus, you know, you can do more. But everybody's falling into the basketball lane, and then only 2% is going to make it there. The rest of them are going to fall by the wayside, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to try to become a successful person, whether it's athletics or not. And yeah, unfortunately, it's almost like social media has a blessing and has a curse. It gives you access to people that you might not have been able to learn from in the past. You know, people can see what you're doing, be inspired by you, but also then everybody else has this kind of like persona of trying to be, you know, the great guy on Instagram.
Yeah,
it might be a complete facade.
A lot of times it is, whether it's from the male or the female perspective, which is, you know, 2 years ago we had to bury, you know, Insta famous young lady from my neighborhood, and you know, thousands of followers on Instagram, and beautiful young lady, had a couple kids. But when it came time to bury her, you know, it took the family weeks and weeks and weeks to generate the revenue. And I'm like, where's all that money that and all these rich guys that was hanging around you when you were alive, you know? Like, and it's the same thing for these drug dealers or street hustlers. Again, they live, you know, they have no sense of they put all that burden on their family, and they just live for today. It's only life is for today. There's no sense of growing old or living for tomorrow. You know, that's why everybody keeps asking me, what did you buy? What did you do? And I'm like, I pay for my house. Yeah. Oh, what kind of car you get? My Ford Fusion. You know, yeah. I'm like, I don't have enough money to go buy another car. I'm like, I need to make more money, and then I'll look into maybe getting something else.
Yeah, we were talking off air. You know, people think, oh, $1 million is not chump change. People are going to start messaging me like, oh, you brat. They're not chump. It's not chump change. But we spoke off air, $1 million. You actually said it best. $1 million now really only feels like it's $200,000 because you got to pay your taxes. You got two daughters and you got a family, and you have to plan for the future. And MMA is one of those things where, again, we talked off air. People don't get it. If you have a bad day in basketball, you just lost the basketball game. You have a bad day in MMA, you could not fight again. It's entirely possible that you're injured to a point that you can't or effectively fight again.
Yeah, for a long time. But that's one thing I will say, that I tried to never question God and the path that I've been on, and all the doors that's been shut in my face, and the foot that I always felt that was on my throat. But I never questioned it. I just stayed positive and chucked forward and kept driving for my goal, was to be a world champion. Not necessarily the money, but to finish this sport, telling the world that I didn't waste my time at it, that I had a goal and I set out to accomplish it. But long story short is, if I would have probably got 100,000 here, 50,000 there, I would have probably grabbed that car. I would have probably grabbed that Rolex watch, whatever it was, that Gucci, that this, that. I would have blew the money. You know what I'm saying? Getting it late and getting it in a chunk is probably the best way to get it, because that way I can manage it a lot better. And I've matured in a sense to,
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, and this is just thinking out loud, your grit and your ability to overcome so many struggles and everything you've seen, at some point when you decide you don't want to do this anymore, it seems like you could probably do this for another 10, 15 years. You seem fit, and you definitely don't look 40. You'll be an incredible business person. I equate like that grind and just never quitting to just all business people become great business people because they've grinded through that stuff.
Oh, thank you. That's the goal. That's why I'm here at this table with great business people, which I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, even in a business, if you have struggles for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, most people can just kind of close up shop and then be like, okay, all my losses are gone. The effort it takes to get yourself in the shape you have to be in, to get yourself ready, the physical, the mental anguish that you have to put yourself through to get to a pro MMA fight and then not be able to just step into a bigger position quickly because you're being held back. Probably 99% of fighters just get tired of it and they're like, I'm done. You grinded through that for 12 years to get to a world championship.
And the scary part is I get messages from parents, messages from fighters from all around the world, America here too as well. And being naiveness, that the sense of it is just crazy. They like, yeah, my son's doing MMA. I told him I know a fighter. I want to get him into UFC or Bellator. Could you put a call in for me? I'm like, dude,
sure. I'll call Uncle Dana.
Yeah, hold on. I'm still waiting on my next one.
Yeah, he wants to make his pro debut for the UFC. I'm like,
he's not Jordan Burroughs, so that won't happen.
But in a sense that people think that fighting is really throwing two fists, and they don't know the history of fighting and how it continually evolves. It's nonstop. Jiu-jitsu is constantly evolving. Striking is constantly evolving. Wrestling, it's nonstop. And the minute you take your foot off the gas, the minute that young whippersnapper is hunting you down.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you've been successful for a very long period of time because, like you said, the sport's changed a lot. You don't see a lot of the guys that are from 35 to like their early 40s competing as well as they do against guys who are in their 20s and doing things completely differently now. Like the striking, like you said, it's evolved so much. It's so different. I mean, like you look at I don't want to use him as an example, but BJ Penn, he was so dominant, and his game, he's obviously slowed down and he's gotten older, but his game hasn't changed that much. No. But then you watch kind of like how the game has evolved, and it's kind of walked right past them. But congratulations. I mean, it's cool to watch. It was cool to watch the Grand Prix, and it's, I've known Mike for a while, so I've kind of known of what you're doing through Mike, and watching you get to the point that you've gotten to and how much impact I honestly feel like you're probably giving to so many young people in the inner city is really awesome to watch. It's very, very cool.
Thanks. Bringing in Mike Cannon as well. He was a gym owner at Elite Fitness. He did a lot for the local south suburb community as well. He had his gym open to me and other fighters too. We would use that as a second home.
Yeah, Mike, was that your first business?
It was, yeah.
And you opened your first business in 2011? You're 2024.
24.
It's crazy. So I think, when was it? I opened my first business at 24. So same age. And at that point at 24, you literally feel like you don't know jack shit.
Nothing.
And it's crazy because I remember taking the risk, and I think in the moment I didn't appreciate how big of a risk it was to open a business because you just don't know. So kudos to you to doing that. So that was number one. And then how did that transition? You still have it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No. When I closed the gym about 2009.
Okay.
Or, well, open 2000.
I forget.
So was it gym 2009? I don't even
forget.
remember.
Yeah.
It was only 4 years.
4 years.
We had the
Okay.
gym for 4 years. So
Very,
it was
very
2000, say 2011 to 2000.
When did you start training? I think I never asked.
Right out of high school.
Okay.
I started training right out of high school.
Did you
With
wrestle
Joe
in high
Goy,
school?
too. I did.
Okay.
St.
Seriously
Rita.
good wrestler.
St. Rita, one of the
always.
better schools around that area.
Yeah. He has a all south.
I know
side.
he's a Brother Rice guy, so we were talking about it. Who actually
Yeah.
grew up in somewhat of the same neighborhood as right by Bogan.
Yeah.
Yep, right
I
by Bogan.
actually, my Bogan again. My head coach Ken Bringy went over to Brother Rice. He's a wrestling coach over there now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Coach Wick, I think it was. And so again, St. Rita used to open their doors for us on weekends, on Saturdays, so we can go over there and get our butts kicked. But appreciate it because me being a city kid who only started wrestling my junior year, ended my sophomore year, I needed to catch up quick, you know. So getting with those guys, Malik Elliott and T.J. Williams and people like that, helps
big names.
help push me faster, my learning curve.
That's crazy. So you started wrestling in your sophomore/junior year, and then
Yeah.
you placed at state.
Yeah, twice.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
He's the most athletic person you'll ever meet. It's pretty
Yeah.
ridiculous. And that's why you ask why he's 40 years old. When I'm 40, and if I look and feel like that, I'll be blessed and above.
Well, you feel like you're 22 years old too when somebody grapples with you.
I don't
It's
know.
like a vice
Yeah,
grip grabs a
he's-
hold of you.
I feel like I'm at that age, 32 right now, where everybody says you hit 30, and like the world's thrown at you. Man, it's not a lie.
Yeah.
It hits you, and it's like, damn, your body starts to get sore. You get hungover. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
never
yeah,
got a
yeah.
hangover until I was 30. We all know I can party.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, ask John how it feels when he gets to 50. But
I'm closing in.
he's closing in.
on
He's
it.
closing in
Yep,
fast.
I am.
So you did the gym, and then you had a bars and restaurants right after
yeah.
as well. When was the first bar and restaurant?
so the gym was 2011. The bar was at the end of 2011, and I opened it in 2012. So
Okay.
I bought it 11, opened in 12. They both did pretty well, and I'm thinking, man, I can just jump right back into another business. So I bought a bar that was just needed to be taken over, and I put the money into it and dumped a bunch of money like that. I thought I was I'm going to return because I already did successful on 2 other ones.
Yeah.
And then I got the fire department call. And anybody that owns any sort of restaurant and bar, everybody knows you got to be there. It doesn't matter. Even if you pop your head in, you got to be there 3-4 times a week, if not every single day. And I just wasn't there. And right from there, it was like downhill.
So you got the firefighter call. That was 2014.
Yeah.
So you were running 2 businesses. You were like 24, 25 years old, and then jumped into being a firefighter as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
You're just like him. I mean, maybe it is the wrestling grind. That is a very grindy thing to do, and you're still a firefighter, which is awesome.
Best job ever.
Thank you for that. That is it's an incredibly dangerous job that I think people don't fully understand. And I've watched some cams of firefighters going into places, and I'm just like, man, I'm an adrenaline junkie, but no, thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes
so-
it hits you sometimes. It's fun. It's like it's super adrenaline. It gets you back going, but there's a few times where you'll be like, oh shit.
This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you guys. When everybody's running out or wants to get out, you guys are going in to do that. And so you kept the restaurant business while you were a firefighter, and then you maintained a firefighter. Still have the restaurant?
I still have one bar.
One bar.
Mike's,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Mike's.
I felt like
Cool
kept it
name.
original.
Yeah,
Original
very
in the
very
neighborhood.
crazy name there, Mike's.
Yeah, I thought it was just too much to balance at once. And
Yeah. So now that you still have it, do you stop in, or do you have somebody else to help?
not as
kinda
much as I
manage?
should.
Yeah.
It's kind of running its own.
Well, you also just had a kid,
I did.
beautiful baby boy.
Callum Michael.
Yeah, and he,
4 months on the left. He
obviously
was
you're
4
friends
months
with
on
him
the
on
left.
Facebook,
Yeah,
and you
and-
see all those. He's so strong. He's made after his daddy.
They got singlets already made for him.
Yeah.
But Mike's selling this stuff short still. Mike still would almost be training almost full time, also, as well as he ran businesses and fire department, and he would still be in the gym training and pushing not just himself, other fighters as well.
You know, Mike, that's the one thing, and I'm glad you touched on that you're great at with all of your friends is you're very supportive of your friends in all the difficult work that you do, but you're always helping try to bring everybody else up. I mean, you're very thoughtful of everybody else around you while maintaining a full-time job as a firefighter, having a restaurant, which is incredible, and a father now, which is incredible.
It's the best job ever.
Yeah, well, we got lunch the other day, and I feel like your son can already beat me in an arm wrestle.
He's the best.
I feel like you're already training him to be able to beat everybody at an arm wrestle.
He'll be doing
double leg everybody soon.
He'll be doing it soon.
Awesome.
And are you planning on keeping the bar?
To me, I think the bar business, unless you're in guys, I mean, everybody knows Luke.
Yeah. He's watching, I think.
Those type of businesses, it's extremely hard, and unless you're kind of at that caliber, you really don't make much money.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you won't make much money in a local bar, but I mean, I've known a lot of friends and a lot of people that own local bars. They don't make the money like you think they do.
It's a risk too.
Don't.
So it's like a
huge risk.
You're making some money, but the risk of losing a lot of money is very, very high. And I know this because we're friends. You've transitioned to investing in real estate, which is a smart thing, and you've done that for a long time, right?
Well, I bought a house when I was 19,
which is crazy.
Yeah. I worked very hard growing up.
Yeah,
and I kind of deterred a little bit, and I got a little sidetracked, and that's why I thought like I lost a lot of that money in the bar. But it was a big, eye opener. Like, hey, I could buy some property, and the property's always going to be there. Somebody's always got to have somewhere to live, whether they want to own it or rent it. So if I have a house and a property, somebody's always going to want to live or rent in it. But if I have a bar, it's like I have to convince people, hey, come in, I got the best bar, But in Chicago, at least, because there's so many Chicago-based jobs, and you have to live in Chicago.
Well, it's like I tell everybody, I'm biased, obviously, because I own a real estate brokerage and I love real estate, but it's a way to invest long-term in your retirement. And it's like, you're both in pretty dangerous professions. I know, Mike, as a firefighter, you guys do have pensions. Who knows by the time you retire if those things will be around. It's dangerous to just rely on something like that. But you guys, are both in a really dangerous profession. And Mike, you've obviously also fought professionally. But that whole knowing at 19 to start planning for your retirement is crazy. I mean, I at 19 was never thinking about planning for my retirement. I was never even a thought.
Always. Like since I was, you could ask anybody in my family, my friends. I always thought about money. Not it's the only thing in the world, but just like, man, because we didn't struggle growing up, but we just I went on one vacation growing up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, I want to buy my mind something. I want to do something. I want to go out and have fun with my friends, and you had to work for that. So when you work for it, and like again, I really credit wrestling to. I honestly think wrestling saved my life. For multiple reasons. Yeah. It made me, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of things, but going back, you just grind. And I could have $20 million in the bank and I'd feel like I had 20. Man.
Yeah, he's definitely, if you know him, he's one of the most driven, tenacious people who's never necessarily comfortable or satisfied. Where somebody else might be like, all right, I'm a firefighter, I'm done. I'm going to just, put my feet up. Mike's like, yo, I got that, now what's next?
Well, I feel like you guys are both like that. I feel like, and maybe it is a correlation between kind of wrestling and obviously Lewis, you and Mike. I know you were in the south suburbs, but obviously not in.
I grew up in the south side.
South side too. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a idea of some people. You said some people are satisfied where they're at, or they're not making the move to get out of there. You both have done incredible jobs of taking your lives and transitioning them into something that's way better for you guys.
I actually just had this discussion with a few of my buddies from the firehouse, like. If you're from the south side, it's like a black hole. Like I hate to say, I mean, like nobody wants to see you succeed. So you get so comfortable. You're marrying the same girls you grew up with. You're never leaving, and you're so comfortable with your life there. I'm not saying it's bad. It's for some people, but that was never for me. I always wanted to get a little bit, reach outside of the box and stuff like that. So
how do you manage your time? Because I know in the firehouse,
horribly. Yeah.
Well, you probably think that, but you probably do a better job than you think. Women are always going to think you're managing.
I'm on the go. I'm on the go 24/7.
But so you guys are. I could be wrong again. It's 48 hours on, 48 hours off, right?
24 on, 48 off.
24 on, 48.
There's a lot of perks with the city jobs.
Okay, but you have to really then. So because when you're on, and then when you're off, you got to take some time to recover. How do you manage kind of? I'm going to train. I'm going to make sure I still run a business, look into my investments, and have the ability to go back and be, because when you're on work, if a call comes in, you got to be 100%. You have to be on.
Yeah.
So you can't be like, oh, I'm exhausted today. How do you manage that?
Well, some days that you're at the firehouse, you'll get 5, 6, 10 calls, depending on where you're at. What busy? I'm in a kind of a busy area. Some days you get 20, and then the next day you had to go. Like I would have to go to the bar or something. I'd be like, man, I'm not 100% into this. I don't even want to be here right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I, like I said, I grew up pretty young. I mean, I grew up pretty fast, pretty young. So like those years of like, man, I want to do this every single day were kind of past me. Yeah. So I started to I really love training. That's more important right now than going to the bar. So my time management was towards what was making me happy instead of what I should have been handling at the time. Mm-hmm. So when I learned how to kind of just balance both of those, it's a bit. You got to sit back and really realize what's most important right now, and then that will make you happy because you're stress free.
Yeah. Did becoming a firefighter and just being busy kind of take away from wanting to push pro MMA to kind of like a level like Lewis is at now? What was it?
Are you asking why I stopped or why?
Yeah, why? Like, was there something that said, "Hey, listen, I
mean, it goes back to like we were talking about earlier. I had I personally think I could have made a pretty good run for it. I mean, I've been told by a lot of people.
Everybody who's ever known you has said that you could.
So, I mean, even recently, Bilal was trying to get me to start fighting again. And he goes, "Man, I'm telling you, we'll put you to the next limit." But it goes to like what we were saying earlier. All these fighters that have put so many hours and so many time into the gym, and they don't get any reward for it. There's guys like Conor McGregor who's doing his thing. You can't hate it.
Yeah.
And he's making a name for himself. He's doing all this disrespectful stuff, but he's doing it. But then there's a guy who would beat the living shit out of McGregor who nobody will ever know who he is.
Yeah.
Nobody. And there's guys that I go in the gym, I'm like, who the hell is this kid? And nobody even knows him.
Yeah.
And there's like, that's why I kind of stepped away from the game. It turned into like, who's the flashiest and who's this? It's the social media game,
Yeah.
And not who's the best.
Yeah, MMA quickly. Me being an older guy, I was here when it was kind of on the probably stage B. After the say Stephen Bonner, Forrest Griffin, when there was a lot of local, all around the globe promotions popping up, and they were paying. There was people pumping money into you. You have sponsors. They would give you money, but at some point, it all dried up.
Yeah.
So the cost to train dries up, and people don't understand that little $500 that you might give a fighter to put on a banner that nobody ever might even really see your banner, or to you it might not translate as making sense. Mm-hmm. For that fighter, huge. It's a lot. It's a lot, because the fight itself they might make, and fighting is the only sport that I know because of the demand of young people wanting to be fighters. It outgrew the actual, so like they came in, I just want to fight. I'll fight for nothing. I'll fight for free.
That's crazy.
And they literally killed the market. You understand? I made my pro debut. I was making like $500, and then it was growing on a scale. When all these young talents came in, promoters go, wait, I don't need you. I can get 5 guys to fight for $100 or $200 instead of paying you $2,000. And so then, for me, I never wanted to treat myself like a prostitute. I'm like, this is what I think I'm worth. Even if that amount wasn't a lot, you're not going to give me less than a month's rent to go step in a cage and get punched in the mouth. So I'm like, at least let it cover my month's rent. But the way these promoters are right now, and the way these young, dumb kids who don't understand that they are actually shooting themselves in the foot, they are killing the market,
I agree. I never understood that I'll fight for anything. It's like, you don't understand. Like, you got to put a value on you. I even say this to business people. Your hour has a worth on it. When you become a business person, you're a business person. As a fighter, you're a business person. You know your worth, and you know how long it takes you to train. You know what it's worth for you to have to get in there. And then on top of that, risk your livelihood, which is something a business person like me, if I go to work and my hour is wasted, or I failed at my hour, again, I lost my hour. I didn't lose my health because of that hour. Yeah. It's such a stupid thing. And I remember the banners, like M1, Strikeforce, all the other promotions. You could have like tens of thousands of dollars just on a banner in your shorts, and then kind of the Reebok thing happened, and then all that stuff was kind of going away, which sucks.
Yeah, it took a lot of money out of a lot of
people. Took a lot of money away from people who were not, like we said, the Conor McGregors, and maybe, Cowboy makes decent money
That's a big
now.
reason I stopped. Do I want the fire department? It's $100 guaranteed, full benefits, everything? Or do I want to take a chance? Maybe I'll make a couple $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Where's it at in 5 years, 6 years? You never know.
Right.
So I kind of just step back and say, hey, let's take definite.
Well, Lewis, you were way more mature mentally than anybody probably, especially 12 years ago when this was kind of getting in there where you were like, hey, I got a worth and I'm going to fight for my worth.
Yeah. You know, when I I came into the game when I was trying to calculate how much money I could make and what I should make and et cetera. And then when I saw this rush of talent, of people who just was fighting for anything, and I go, what are you doing? And then I noticed that even the promotion started dying, the money they wanted to give you started drying up, and I'm like, bro, people, they were like, they'll offer you like right now, if I stop through, I'll give you 500 and 500. I'm like, bro, I made that when I debuted. I'm like 8, 9, 10 fights in now. I was supposed to be making, your scale goes up, not backwards, especially when you haven't really lost.
Right.
But again, until there's no union in MMA, there's no classes, no even the coaches and the management, they don't even know how they're hurting. Like, it's just like in the UFC. This is why I credit even myself. I didn't know that there was that much money when I look at someone like Conor McGregor. People who had been in the game didn't realize that they were all still getting peanuts.
Yeah.
Then Conor came like, yo, I want 200 million. Oh, you're crazy. Here goes 100. Oh, he got it.
Yeah.
Like, wait. But if you don't know that you're worth more, the person who's making the top dollar is not going to go just tell you.
Yeah, I mean, love him or hate him, I always say this. He has shown a lot of people that the ability to bargain for your worth at a very high level. He just kind of digs his heels in and says no until he gets what he wants. And I read an article, I don't know if it was clickbait or not, that Sylvester Stallone was offering some of his shares.
I mean, because he deserves it or something.
Yeah, he does deserve it, and I appreciate. Yeah, Sylvester as a fighter, and not an actor fighter, but he still has been in the gym long enough to appreciate real fighters, and that's something. Even so with Conor, knowing. And then he knows he moves the needle. He knows that he has a fan base, and love him or hate him, he has progressed the sport. He's making it so all of us are eating more. I probably wouldn't have got the check I got right now if it wasn't for Conor. It would have been we're gonna do a tournament, $50,000 to the winner.
And people would have jumped on it because it's $50, $20 more you would have gotten at a different promotion.
And people would have jumped on it. Exactly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see now with them going to ESPN and not having pay-per-view, how he's going to strategically negotiate it, because your pay-per-view buys kind of have gone away, where before he was getting a portion of the pay-per-view buys. And I heard that with the ESPN deal now, it's a set amount every time, so he doesn't really have the pay-per-view aspect of it. So it's different.
We'll see. I'm not even in that bracket conversation, so I don't know how that one.
Yeah,
works.
I read it.
I only watch fights. Like, I don't even.
I read it on MMAfighting.com, so I could be totally wrong too.
No.
I rarely watch fights unless these guys Blau him, Clay or something like that.
Blau's last fight was crazy too.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Clay just fought BJ.
Yeah, which is another good one.
I mean, that's the only time I watch.
That was
fights
hard.
Get into it. Is with these
Either
guys.
way that would have gone, it would have broke hearts.
Oh, I know, man. Clay's honestly a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
It's hard to see BJ like the guy's worth $22 million. What are you fighting for?
Yeah.
I mean, but that goes back to like if you're a fighter and you're truly a warrior at heart, you're never gonna give it up.
No, and his family was well off before he even started fighting, but he just does it for himself. But like I said, when I started fighting as a coach, and I was done competing, but I felt a desire to still compete. Even now, people are like, "Are you done?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty much. I'm getting close to being done, but I don't want to leave money on the table as well. Right. I want to make sure, because I feel like I've earned more money. So I want to, when I do retire, I want to take as much off with me that I left, because people were like, "Oh, you made that?" No, but I've been in this game a long time. Even say I got 12 years, that's still less than $100,000 a year, so they still owe me technically another $200,000.
Yeah, right. So looking to fight again, obviously?
Oh, yes.
Awesome. Because being the PFL middleweight champion and winning that Grand Prix definitely opens doors to hopefully bigger paychecks going forward.
Yeah, either bigger paychecks, bigger opportunities. But if there is no more fights, I'm cool. Okay. And if there is, I'm down. I want to fight. I still feel like I can fight. I can compete with the best. inside the UFC, outside the UFC, I don't really care. You know, I just know that if you put another man in front of me, I'm gonna try to tear his head off.
Well, by watching,
would you want the Rolex still? You mentioned because he's got one on.
Yeah, don't beat me up for it.
I got one in the house. No, just
it's no. I mean, obviously, watching your Grand Prix, I think you can hang with anybody, and I think it's also astonishing that you've been able to keep that level of fitness. Mike said, you know, you're a genetic marvel.
It's unreal. Honestly.
Yeah, it's crazy to get to that age.
Ask
it's
anybody
like
who trained with. It's kind of crazy.
It's you see some people who at a certain age, like a Dan Henderson, Randy Couture, like at a later age, like still had like really good fitness.
It's because of the wrestling, for one, and all those guys, just like myself, they all started late. You know, I forgot the age of Randy and Hendo. You know, they started late. But you know, and so you took like less damage, and a lot of these fights take years off of fighters' lives, and that's another thing. I have a complaint with the youth. I'm often telling them, like, why are you in there, you know, playing Rock'em Sock'em Robot when you could have just got him out of here? You know, I just want to put on a show for the fans. I'm like, bro, there's 200 people here. I'm like, no one's gonna see this fight. Your parents and family only want to see you win. They don't care if you do it in 3 seconds or not. You know, get in there, get the job done, and get out. Save that. When that war comes, it's coming if you stay in the sport long enough.
Right.
Don't rush to get into it. Even John Jones said it when he fought Augustus, and he's like, I always want to be in one of those wars. I don't anymore.
Right.
You know, like, you know, it takes years off your life.
It's long lasting. We had Daniel Carcillo on here, who's a ex, and he was 2-time Stanley Cup Blackhawks player, and he was talking about CTE and you know, concussions and post concussion syndromes and stuff. And it's a real thing. And when you're some people train like that too. They fight like that. They train like that. That's not the smartest way to have a long term career.
No, I can count the times I've been concussed on one hand. And almost none of them have came in the cage.
No,
you know,
they never do.
Yeah, so I think the first time I got concussed was with Mike training at Elite. But I took a shot, and it wasn't a punch. I just hit my head on the floor. You know, then I come up.
That's just how quick I was.
Now you see, now you don't.
See, when I said Mike, I meant his gym.
but sorry, Mike.
Yeah, but the thing is, and even sometimes I had to pull back, because even in last year's tournament, I got a concussion maybe 2 weeks before I had a fight, and so of course I realized, fudge, you know, I just got a concussion, and so I had to pull back on my sparring. I had to pull back on everything because I didn't want to. I had to take the precautions, and I did. But when it came down to me and fighting Rex Harris, then I realized my timing was off because I hadn't been really sparring for the last 2 weeks, and I was punching and I was off by, you know, like a foot, and I'm like, whoa, you know, in my, you know, but again, I was able to just use heart and grit to find a way to win that fight.
You know what's crazy about MMA too, as opposed to other professional sports? You know, LeBron had a bad year. It was a bad year. He's going to be fine next year. MMA is so, your last fight just really has such a crazy effect. You know, you could win 15 in a row, and then if you get knocked out quickly in your last fight because somebody caught you with a quick punch, then everybody remembers that last fight. They forget 15 fights where you won. They just remember that last one, and it's such a tough thing.
It is, but I would say it's better than boxing, because in boxing you can be 40-0, you get one loss, now they act like you're straight trash.
Right.
Now, but at least with MMA, you get that loss and you can get back in there and then redeem it. And people look at some of the greatest fighters have losses on their record. If MMA was boxing, Conor would never be where he's at,
right?
Because he already had losses on his
5
record.
losses or something.
You know, the support wouldn't be there. You know.
Do you find that boxing has a lot of padded? Like, you get a lot of guys fighting, obviously guys that are like,
it's corrupt. It's the most corrupt thing in the world.
Yeah.
Some of my like very, very close friends, I won't mention the name because they're probably mad about the story, but he's been screwed over by Don King so many times. So this is years ago. It's the most corrupt sport ever.
Yeah. And it's you know, MMA, almost every time you go out, you might have a guy who's not that tough, but at your level at least, Lewis, every guy is going to be really tough.
Yeah.
There's not a walk in the park for you.
No, and that's the thing about it. That's where last year I was able to actually show the world that I can do more than one thing. Like, they put me in there with some people who they thought was going to outstrike me. I outstruck them. People who had better ground games. Oh, he's a third-degree black belt. You know, I out-grappled them. People, you know, even in the finals, you know, world-class Muay Thai wrestler. What is he going to do? I'm still going to win because that's what I'm in there to do. I don't care how I win. I just want to make sure at the end of the night my hand gets raised.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's the your grind and grit has really kind of I remember watching your record was like guillotine, and then it was a lot of like winning in all different types of ways. Like you've won every which way from a decision to a knockout to everything.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, even those guillotines, for the most part, came after punches. You know, I would hit guys, and then they would go, "Oh crap," and then they would shoot. You know, and so I just became, you know, I just knew that once I touch you, and the people feel like what it feels like to really get hit. They you know, they just automatically turn to wrestling, even if they're not a good wrestler.
So if either one of you grabbed John in a guillotine and you start to,
I actually might for that whole Brother Rice talk from earlier. I haven't decided yet.
Who would make John go unconscious faster? I mean, we can watch this. John, we'll just turn the camera over here and we'll just see how this pans out.
They got to sign a waiver.
Yeah, you're in Wheelhouse. I don't mind. I'll sign off on it.
Depends. Does he pull guard?
Yeah. What do you think of guard pullers?
Come on, man. I forgot. I can't remember. Don't quote me who it was, but it was some high-ranking Brazilian guy. He goes, "You could start off as a black belt in an MMA fight. Every time you get hit, you get demoted.
Yeah,
you'll end up as a white belt."
Yeah. Who said that?
Those are for your guard pullers. You're not really tough. You're only tough when there's no punches.
I think that was who's the Gracie, the badass one who's had like the claim has had thousands of fights. Enzo
Hoist. I don't know.
No.
I know you're talking about.
Wasn't
he just in Chicago?
Yeah. I follow him on Instagram.
Maggie said, "Please don't." Smiley face. No, we won't do that. He needs to make it to vacation.
Yeah, he's gonna go on. Where are you going?
Punta Cana.
But we'll just wake you up. You just shake your knees in your chest or something. Just
hey man, you're in front of the camera already, so why don't we do it with you?
Yeah.
And we'll just shake you and wake you up.
See, people don't realize Mo's actually a pretty good grappler. I don't think he never talks about it.
No, I've actually been choked unconscious at IBJJF. I think I cut too much weight, and I don't like to tap the chokes unless they're real deep. And he had like a weird collar choke, and I was just like, I was winning. I was up by a bunch of points. I just tucked my chin in, and I was just kind of defending. And then I woke up, and I was like, I looked over, and I saw TK, and I'm like, fuck. And I was like, God damn it. And I got
It's better than seeing Lawrence, because I'd been really let down if Lawrence was there.
Yeah, I think he was on the other side.
I was going to say,
he was on the other side winning.
He's on the other side of the world because he doesn't like Chicago. He's on the other side of the world.
Yeah, it's that was an interesting experience getting strangled completely unconscious. But I'll tell you, anytime I've ever boxed, that is a much more helpless feeling if you're losing because you can't tap. You can't be like, I give up.
Yeah.
Like getting hit. And I feel like you get a lot of
like
jiu-jitsu guys. You get a lot of jiu-jitsu guys who feel like, I could beat anybody's ass, and they don't realize like, well, you get to tap out in jiu-jitsu. And yes, you can probably beat up most people in a one-on-one fight, but a good wrestler who can punch you in the face probably can't beat him up.
No. Yeah. That's why wrestling's life.
Yeah. I mean, I think wrestling is a very underrated martial art. People always, but again, you have to pair it with jiu-jitsu. But a wrestler who knows jiu-jitsu is a problem because wrestlers, for some reason, we all have a grounded stance if we'll crack you with a nice overhand right or left in Mike's case, or put you on your back. And if it's a street fight, the concrete is not a mat. So it's a difference.
Well, George St. Pierre became so good and he wasn't a wrestler growing up by trade.
That's still crazy to me.
But he became so good, so he just determined where the fight would go. Had a good jab, and he just figured out, all right, I determine where the fight goes.
You could teach majority of wrestlers how to do stand-up. You can't teach a stand-up guy.
To wrestle like George.
It's hard.
That's like I'm still amazed that he was able to do that. He's just that athletic.
Yeah, like he beat national champions in wrestling, but at the same time, unlike say Askren or Khabib, these guys aren't abandoning their wrestling roots. Mm-mm. They're like, I'm just gonna out-wrestle you. I'm not interested in throwing a punch. I'm just gonna grab you when I get the chance and pull you down and beat you down. And so the difference is a lot of the earlier generations where even Askren is just now being rewarded for doing the same thing that Khabib is doing. And when Khabib, I respect him to death. But when Khabib was gaining his success, and I go, well, wait, everybody hated Askren.
Yeah, they booed him for doing it.
Dana White hated Askren for doing the same style. And I'm like, that isn't, it didn't make much sense to me. I'm like, you punish the American but praise the Russian. I'm like, and that was just another thing too about how Americans don't support Americans. You see how the Irish get behind Conor, and that's what makes Conor successful is that push from his homeland in an entirely different country. Because when Conor fights, they travel. They like, no, you think he knows all? He don't know them, but they travel. The difference is I can fight, in New York, and 95% of the people I know are making an excuse of why they can't come.
Yeah. I went to the Mayweather-McGregor fight, not to the actual fight, but I was in Vegas for it, and all of Las Vegas was Irish.
Yeah.
They were chanting from morning to night.
Green.
Yeah.
We'd be playing blackjack at noon, and you had the "fuck the Mayweathers" chant. They would get the whole casino going, and they were just chanting it up. And they were doing the ole 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 all day.
And Vegas is where Mayweather's from.
Right.
And so the thing is, I told people, even when Conor fought in New York against Eddie Alvarez and won the second belt, and we had a bad night as far as my team, and I was depressed, but it was so hard not to get swept up into the energy that the Irish people bring when they follow him. And I was like, wow, it was just surreal. You know, they had a banner about the size of a street, marching it down 7th Street. They shut the street off. The cops couldn't do nothing. They literally, this is New York, no traffic was going through, for like 50, until they got tired of taking over New York. They couldn't do nothing.
You made a great point about Askren. I mean, his style, like Khabib's, is drag you to the ground and impose his will where he's good at imposing his will. And he's still undefeated, right?
Yeah.
He was undefeated for a decade of doing MMA, but everyone's like, oh, he's boring. Khabib does the same thing.
And it's exciting, But I just think the MMA game has finally caught up to where a high-level wrestling could get respect.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I'm happy. Askren was above his time. He's before his time, and he didn't get no love back then. But now people are like, wow, if someone who can do that is awesome.
Hey, he's also a funny guy. I mean, he's
the best.
He's
boom roasted. That's the greatest thing.
I mean, he quickly came into the UFC, and then went from being obviously kind of, Dana's like, oh, I don't hate him. You could tell Dana didn't like him very much, but got to a point where he's getting invited out to London during the
question and answer,
George Masvidal fight, the Q&A. So he's done a really good job of, with the short amount of time he's been in the UFC, really catapulting his name up there.
I mean, he's already been a multi-world champion. The UFC for him is just the last horizon. Just like myself, if I was to get there, it would be just the last hurrah. The thing that you wanted to do before you retired, but if it came, cool. If it didn't, cool. And now he's just living in a moment. He's fighting the guys he's looked up to. And, he's like, I'm a huge fan. I don't want to fight him. But that's who they want. They want to give him the guys he don't want to fight. But he's still making the best of the opportunity.
He really wants that George St. Pierre fight, but I don't think George is coming back for that.
Not for that. That's too dangerous of a fight for George.
George has always been smart. He got out when he could. He's injured. He'll fight for a big payday.
Well, he wanted the Khabib fight, but that for the UFC, if George came in and embarrassed Khabib and then was like, hey, I'm out, because he was only going to do one and then peace out, then you ruined your other draw too.
But Khabib's smaller than Askren as well.
It's 155.
Yeah,
and Askren's a $170.
Yeah, so it's a difference.
St. Pierre said he was going to go to 55
for that fight.
That's crazy. He would have been crazy to make that because he was shredded at 185.
Yeah, I don't see him making that weight though.
And he's older now.
Yeah, it's hard.
I used to even cut weight for jiu-jitsu tournaments a bunch. Now I'm like, couldn't cut 2 pounds if you asked me to.
And George isn't a small guy either. He's 6 feet 6'1".
George, I don't know. I think he is smaller. He's like 5'10".
I think he's shorter, but he didn't look that much smaller than Bisping when they fought. And Bisping used to fight at 205 and went down to 185. So 155, he'd be a massive 155. I remember seeing. Actually, I was there for a wedding, but it was the weekend that Conor fought Khabib. I was in Vegas for a wedding, and I walked by Woodley, and I was like, whoa. I imagined him to be so much bigger. I mean, he was in a suit, so you couldn't see how jacked he was, but he wasn't that much taller than me.
He's not that big.
No.
And I was like, whoa, he's not that big of a guy.
Woodley's like 5'9".
Yeah.
But yeah.
A couple inches taller than me. But not that big.
But he's, thick and muscular, once you take him off.
You got a shout out from Jason Moneybag Smith, said the king of Chicago's MMA, definitely showing you You can become whatever you want, and being from the ghetto, 100%.
Thank you.
And then Roberto Ramirez said it was Carlson Gracie and Renzo Gracie that said that.
Gotcha. I knew it was one of those.
Who is Roberto Ramirez?
Yeah.
So there's a, I don't know why he
Shout
tosses
out,
this
Coach.
out there. I don't know why he never mentions that he's good friends with Rampage. Seeing his career grow up too.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy.
Yeah, very.
Did he get
very
you
fun.
fighting?
No, he didn't get me fighting. I just followed him, and then I just knew that I could, become successful if I followed that path.
Yeah.
I watched him. I watched him when he was dirt poor. He used to literally just. I used to have to sneak him in our dorm room because he wasn't supposed to be on campus and run food to him because he couldn't afford to eat.
Wow.
And then I remember driving him to the airport just so he could go, because we had some girls out in Arizona, so he can go stay with some girls we just randomly met just because he was homeless at the time and didn't want to go home back to Memphis because he didn't want to give up on his dreams. And then he was like, email me on like Hotmail or something like, yo, I'm taking a fight. And then from there it was just
Busting skulls.
Was that in Pride?
no, that was his first one was in California somewhere, I believe, or Arizona. And then after that, once he went to Japan and they saw that power bomb, they just fell in love with him.
Yeah, and he's a great self-marketer, and then sidestepped from MMA into acting too. What a great transition
And
he
now
made.
he's playing he has a video game line on Twitch. And other things. It's great opportunities.
He's a big guy too. You were a training partner with him?
Yeah.
Because when he balloons up, he's like
big.
260.
He also said one of the funniest comebacks I've ever heard to John Jones.
Which one?
John Jones was talking shit to him when he goes, "Shut up, John. Your legs look like two burnt toothpicks." I lost it, dude.
Yeah.
It was too funny.
Matchsticks.
Yeah, and then good old John Jones. I mean, he now his career is starting to get very long too. I mean, he was such a powerhouse when he first started, and he kind of was like the next level. Like he had already evolved into kind of that next style of MMA, but he's kind of kept that career going for a long time. I mean, he's not my favorite fighter in the world, John Jones, but he's kind of just. I mean, every time you want to see him lose, he pulls it out.
I think he's one of those guys that kind of let the fame get to him. He was awesome.
Yeah, he's a
most
young
respectful
guy,
guy when he first started. Now he's just like, holy shit, dude, you're a completely different fighter.
Douchebag.
Like, you're not a fighter, you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you get that type of success at such a young age,
It's hard.
you want people to stay the same, humble, God fearing, et cetera. But then the circle you keep changes. You can tell the circle he kept was into sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah, and I'm surprised a little because his brothers. I think his brothers are older and they're pro athletes too. I would have almost imagined he would have probably done a better job of adapting to it, seeing his brothers already kind of be famous guys.
That's why I said there's no excuse to the matter
No,
of money. Because, I mean, his brothers were taking care of him at least some point for his training career.
A little better than most, definitely. Because like we were saying, $500 can go a long way. And if you got NFL money, then you can definitely afford to fly your brother here. I've never really had a camp anywhere outside of Chicago. That's why when people say, oh, they from Chicago, but most people are from, but they leave. I'm probably one of the few incidents that just stayed in Chicago, trained in Chicago, a little small gym here and there, but nothing fancy, nothing state of the art,
That's awesome. I mean, that even goes further to prove your toughness and skill set because people now fly around to these like mega gyms. Like you go down to Florida, there's tons of them. Now the UFC Performance Institute has like some crazy training.
They're building one in China, Nevada, and that place is sick. Even when it comes to training partners like Rampage, unfortunately, you get to a certain success, but you look back and there's not many people there, and then you're paying for your training partners. We're like a do-it-yourself gym. Yeah. Like we just, hey, can you make it at this time? And hey, this person has a cage. We're gonna go here. It's
crazy.
I mean, we're fighting on the highest scale, but we're doing it at a low budget pace.
Well, I've seen a bunch of pictures of you guys and Belal when he was fighting his last fight. Even there's pictures of you and Kevin and a bunch of guys just training with him when he's down here because I know he goes up to Milwaukee.
Yeah,
right?
Duke Rufus.
Yeah.
Which took him a long time. I don't know who talked. I think it's one of the best things he's done in his career is out streaming from doing that. But
we had Daniel Underlay, who is one of our head jiu-jitsu coaches. He got the opportunity for Duke and to be his head jiu-jitsu instructor, and then so he took off, maybe a year or two before that. And then Anthony Pettis had his success as as a world champion, and then from there, I want to go down there. And then so Bilal and them started going, for him, Kevin, they start taking off. I'll go every blue moon, but I have a wife, kids, family, so it's hard. I can't, and my wife has that 9 to 5, so I'm the person who does the doctor appointments, who does the parent-teacher conferences. I'm the person, and that's the thing. I'm blessed with having the ability to fight. I haven't really had to lose time with my kids.
That's awesome.
That's when I'm like, that's why, like, if I could have never won last year's fight, I would have still been happy because my kids are happy. I haven't lost anything from them.
Time with them.
And that's a sacrifice a lot of people have to make when you're trying to put food on the table, is you lose time with your family.
Having to get up and go to a camp every 8 weeks before a fight and just leave your family, that's tough. How old are your kids?
They're 10 and 9 now.
Okay, so they're fun. Do they watch the fights? Do they not watch the fights?
They're there.
Really?
There. Yeah. And that's another reason I don't like losing.
Yeah, that's the other thing about sports. Like I saw Max Holloway brought his little son to all of them. That last fight, I was watching it while it was happening. I was like, oh man, like watching his son watch that happen, because that was such a brutal fight is really hard.
Yeah, he was crying.
That was crazy.
He was crying backstage, and we were there. And Max is such a cool dude, and Dustin as well. So sometimes that
was Bilal's fight.
Yeah,
it was fun.
That was his weekend.
And again, like Max gave Bilal shout outs, and we was doing photo ops with his kids and the whole crew. You it's hard, to watch people or a little bit even, and then to take certain beatings, and then you want. People paid their money to watch fights, but at some point in that fight, I thought they could have tossed the towel.
Yeah, that was
and then he fought his way back into the fight as well. But still, those moments, like I say, I'm like, my stomach wrenches, because I know at some point I might be the guy who have to decide or not if enough's enough.
Yeah. And that's always the crazy thing, is when do people figure out? I feel like you have a really strong head on your shoulders as to like a good perspective of what the career means to you. You feel like you've achieved what you want. You want to obviously go achieve more, because there's money to be made now, and a lot more money to be made. But I feel like you have a good head on your shoulders where you're just going to know when it's time to hang them up, where some people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, you too. You did a good job of knowing. You balanced at that point. You said, "Hey, listen, I got this great opportunity to be a firefighter, and I make good money, and it is dangerous, but at least I'm not constantly hurting myself."
Yeah, I had to choose between a career or something that might be a career.
Or a dream.
Yeah, right.
But then, again, you still vicariously still get to live his dreams.
I'm happy training. I see it. And honestly, part of me feels like I see like these guys, I train with them and they're succeeding. Part of me, I feel like, man, it's like all of us. I'm not taking anybody's credit, but even the guys when I was fighting or wrestling or something, it's like they get credit too, because they helped me get to that point. So
it's the same feeling for me. Even when I'm not fighting, if I'm in there helping other young fighters achieve their dream. My wife asked me one day, she was like, "How can you do that?" Like I couldn't go help other people achieve their dream when my dreams are, burning somewhere, and I'm like, babe, my dreams are my dreams. They're not changing, but you that energy, it goes on to the next person. Like, yo, you want to see them do well, but then at the same time, you also don't want to be taken advantage of. And that's another thing that's a problem within MMA is loyalty. A lot of people won't even give you the credit of helping them or doing anything for them the minute they become successful. And that's why I always appreciate those who are loyal.
Yeah, I think that thing of loyalty, it's gone in business. It's probably gone in MMA and a lot of parts of life. I tell everybody, even in business, if I've ever only been one thing, it's loyal. Yeah. I get it sometimes with, some people are watching, lenders reach out and say, "Hey, listen, we want to come to your office. We want to help out with this. I'll help you with that. I'll help you with this." And I said, "No, I got a guy. I've known him for 20 years and he's my guy. And there's not a thing you're ever going to do to make me change that, because it just doesn't make any sense not to be loyal. And MMA is such a fickle environment where, you know, everybody's like, oh, this is the new shiny thing, this is a new shiny gym, this is a new shiny place to go to, and people just jump ship a lot.
I mean, like my head coach at Roberto Ramirez, you know, I needed a place to train. He was interested in starting his business, and we said, you know, let's do it, you know. And he opened that door. And then, you know, of course, I've had a ton of other gyms. Hey, come out, train out here. You could stay here. I got you. But at the same time, sometimes you got to realize what's best for you. For me, having the coaches and the focus on me when it's my time to train is better than maybe going to American Top Team or somewhere where there's 50 world champions. Because sometimes even when you're training, you don't know if that guy has the best interest for you, and a lot of these, you know, a lot of these guys, when you're in there sparring and stuff, they're not trying to preserve your health. They'll hit you, and you know when it's we're going 40%, and you'll know you're a fighter yourself, so you're not gonna say time, you know. We're not, you know, you're just gonna go with the flow, and so something that was supposed to be light sparring will quickly turn into a
fight with emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, which again can lead to getting hurt. Like you said, you had tons of concussions in training.
Yeah, because the minute that's when you get hurt. Have you ever noticed that? Well, the minute you try to be easy on somebody or too easy, that's when they go, you know, they're like, you know, I was just trying to do light, and then next thing you know, you're hurt because you was just trying to, you know, flow with someone else who was trying to, you know, I don't know if they scared or what, but just going way too hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys, Mike, the last time I went in, and I haven't been going in very much. You, out of everybody, when I said, hey, listen, I haven't trained in a long time, I just want to go light, you were teaching me, you weren't trying to kill me when you could have just murdered me in a second. Everybody else was trying to rip my arms and my neck off.
I think there's a lot of people, like, you go
back.
to gyms.
No egos. You don't have an ego.
Yeah. You go to gyms with a lot of guys that haven't fought, and we were actually talking about this too, is I like to train hard. I always like to train hard, and I'll go, as I think I go to the same pace as other people. But when they pick it up, then you pick it up hard. You go hard.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that haven't, like, are just picking up the sport, they go 180 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to work with them, but like, shit, I don't want to
get hurt. Yeah. You got to protect yourself. And it'd be the same thing with me. Even a lot of the other guys, some guys we sparred, they were like, oh, man, you sparring light with this guy, but when you spar with me, you crack me. I'm like, cuz. You trying to crack me or you hit, and they're like, but I'm smaller than you. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. If we're sparring at 50% and you hit me at 100%, I'm not gonna hit you back at 50 just because you're 20 pounds lighter than me. I'm gonna crack you right back. And you know, and some people just don't get it, you know, and so you have to teach it to them the hard way.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go 0% with both of you. So I don't have to get hit. We flew through well over an hour. We always ask this on the show, and I'll start with you, Lewis. It could be advice for either somebody getting into wrestling, MMA, or business in general, just a piece of advice to anybody. It could be somebody from the inner city that just wants to get out, or all of the above. We just always ask for a piece of advice if you got anything for people.
My piece of advice goes back to the company you keep. Make sure that the people around you are positive. You know, you don't have to completely cut off negative people, but try to always put yourself in a situation where you're bettering yourself, you're bettering your life. You know, if the party is in a dangerous place, then you shouldn't be there. If the situation is potentially not gonna let you come home to your mother, your wife, your kids, then it's not worth it.
Great advice. Mike?
If I was going to give any advice, it's the lessons I've learned with some of the, I know this is entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
If you're going to get yourself into something, just because somebody else did it to something else doesn't mean necessarily it's easy for you to do it. So if you plan on investing in something, you're planning on doing something, get a game plan. Don't just do it because the guy next to you made $1 million doing it, because he most likely knew the ins and outs of it. So I learned the hard way losing some money, and I wish I would just had, like, honestly, I wish I would have had podcasts and stuff like this to listen, hey, this is the right way to do it, instead of just doing it because I had a little bit of money to invest and I want to do it now. Just do it the correct way, the right way at first, and then you won't have all the back falling.
Love that too. Yeah, the access to information so much more than 10 years ago when we started businesses. Now you can pop on a podcast and get some information, or you can go to YouTube and learn something about everything nowadays.
That and stop pulling guard. That's
stop pulling guard. In your free times, I always ask this too, Lewis. Outside of fighting, and obviously you got 2 kids and a wife. What do you do outside of fighting and training?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, I'm with my family all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's not in the gym, it's with the family.
Awesome. And Mike, I know you
Yeah.
just now you got a little one. So
my
I think
downtime,
that's-
I'm either sleeping or I'm at the gym. But now my little
Change
guy is the
diapers.
best thing ever. Yeah,
Yeah, he's adorable.
it's
Brought
the
him
greatest
out to,
thing ever.
brought him
It's
out to
life
lunch.
changing. It's really
Yeah,
life
it
changing.
Yeah.
I always tell people you're a different person, the you before your kids, and then as the you after. You know, if you're a good parent, that is.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, I've heard this from watching a lot of fighters say, "Hey, listen, having the kid either motivated me or it changed me where I wasn't as aggressive." Do you feel that, when you had your daughters, it changed that, or was it just more you can separate kind of family from when you go in there and fight?
I mean, fighting. I'm me, and that's one thing I have learned to be. I learned to keep the same me right now as the same me that's in a cage. Of course, when I see the opportunity to kill, I will. But I try not to change. I try to stay the same person and keep it even kill. That's something I'm trying to teach to some of the younger fighters as well. Don't let your emotions and chemical imbalance, because it'll affect your thought. If you're a smart person outside the cage, be a smart person in the cage. Take it with you. You have to try to balance that testosterone aggression right into their peaking, but not one is overpowering the other.
Yeah, there's a real big psychology in fighting like that too. You see people get overly aggressive, and then all of a sudden the whole game plan goes away because they're trying to prove something.
It's the
crazy
best quote
and
ever.
so stupid.
Tyson's. Everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? Well, I know what you like doing in your free time, but
I love training, man. It's
Yeah.
my good thing. I'm really getting into property now. I want to start
yeah.
doing a little bit. I'm starting to get I'm being a little handy myself doing. I have,
Oh, jeez.
yeah. We'll
This
see how
guy's
that
getting
goes.
handy. Uh-oh.
We'll see how that goes.
What are you swinging the hammer at now?
Nothing. I just trying to do my deck right now. We'll see. That's a small task, but we'll see how it goes.
A lot of guys in the firehouse are typically pretty good at doing stuff. It's strange. Like firefighters and cops seem to have a good grasp on just doing renovations.
They're all because firemen, you have the liberty to have 2 jobs.
Right.
So I'm like the black. They're like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "Dude, I used to get punched. That was it. It's about it." I mean, I own a gym and a bar, and all these guys, you should see some of the stuff at the firehouse. There's brick grills. They all build it themselves because they're all tradesmen.
Ryan Foley, who's the home inspector I use for almost all of my inspections, he's got 3-4 guys now that work with him. They're firefighters. They do that on the side now as a second kind of job.
Yeah.
And they're all really, really good at it. And I said this to them last time. I said, what is it with like firefighters and cops that are always good at like building houses, like fixing things? Like they just have that skill set.
I think you have the liberty to do it.
Yeah.
And from where I'm from on the south side, I'm sure John could say the same thing. You grow up, your parents are all trades.
Yeah.
It's rarely you get an attorney, or rarely you have somebody that's like a different type of trade or different type of profession. But how many people are all trades? It's all trades.
Absolutely.
So the kids growing up doing the same stuff, and then bam.
Yep.
Which is another place that I believe that the school system should start putting kids back into trades. Like I was posting on my Instagram the other day, college is becoming where it's a scam. All it is debt for a lot of people. They're coming out, can't get a job, and they got $70,000 in debt on top of getting a job that they were making less money that they would if they'd have started 5 years ago.
Yep.
So I'm glad to see these this awareness that we need to get trades people, the craftsmen back important into the forefront, because houses need to get built and this and that. And then you got people want to complain about immigrants, but what are immigrants coming over here doing? They're coming over here building houses.
Jobs.
You know what I'm saying? Because we're focused on only the degree to go work for someone else, and a lot of the things too, like too much free time. I feel like either the military needs to be automatic. If you don't have a job or something by your time you're 18, you need to go do a year or 2 in the military just to make sure you're a man. And if not that, then you need to go to a trade school, a craftsman, to learn how to do something with yourself. If you leave people out here, I know we got freedom and freedom this and freedom that, but at some point, too much freedom is a bad thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I had this discussion a few months ago with somebody about they really should have more, especially in Chicago public schools, more push and more education on trades and how much getting in the right trades can make you a lot of money and can give you a great living. Yeah. Like you said, you're going to go into college, and it's fine. Go to college if that's right for you.
Yeah.
You know, and you might be in $100,000-$200,000 of debt, or you learn to be an electrician and you're making $80,000-$90,000 a year, and you can go get that job with maybe even a 2-year degree, and you go to a community college, you take some classes, you could be an electrician or a carpenter. There's needs for those jobs, and I feel like people have to, and we talked about it a little bit, like the whole Instagram persona. They're like, oh, well, I want to go be this or I want to go be that. And you take that out of your head and just do what is going to be a really smart thing for your life at that point.
Definitely. I mean, I look at people right now, and they went to school for something. They went to school but didn't know what they really wanted to do. They decided to pick something but wasn't really happy with it. And I'm like, that is a lot of money invested into something because you got your parent and teacher. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But you really didn't have an answer at that time. And like people always say, oh, you got your kid. No, if my kids decide to go to college, they're going to know what they want out of life. You know, I'm not just going to, oh, we got the money, here you go. No, because then it's a waste of money. Yeah. You know, so I'm just looking at a lot of these other kids too. Like even the ones who graduate in school, they still lost.
Jobs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to tell my friends all the time, they come out and they wouldn't do what they went to school with. Just you went to a party for $50,000. That's it.
If you're lucky, 50.
You got charged $50,000 to go to a party.
Yeah.
I read an article yesterday that was talking about switching out. Like it was almost like a joke. Get rid of Algebra 2 and give people a class in high school about how to do their taxes, apply for a job, different types of jobs, taking out a loan, how that impacts your life. Who the hell knows X plus 7 equals 7X? Like, what the fuck?
What is the reasoning on that? Why wouldn't that be shown?
After I learned how to do multiplication tables in the 3rd grade, and I was the best at them, I was the fastest, my math skill set went down to shit because you don't need it anymore. I got a phone that does my math for me.
But then the crazy thing, it'll be some architect or contractor. That'll be the only person who need that algebra. But then it will be
make it optional.
But I'm saying it would be for a reason for it to do their job.
Yeah.
But then the same person who you went out to be a contractor, if you made it to a certain level, then that algebra or learning it would become applicable.
Yeah, I hope all engineers, you guys all go learn all the algebra, physics, and geometry you need, but I sure as shit don't need it.
I mean, you're talking to the wrong person if you're talking about any sort of like engineer.
Yeah. No, but I agree. I think, and especially in Chicago, where a lot of people could really benefit in the public schools from getting a good education on all the different trades that are available to them. And you really can make a lot of money and a great living working a lot of these trades. Definitely. HVAC contractors make a killing. And there's a huge need for them. In the winter in Chicago, when shit hits the fan, and no pun intended, and your furnace blows out and stuff, there is a shortage of that. And if that was taught, you can't get anybody there. And if you taught people to say, hey, listen, learn this trade, there is a need for you to learn this trade, and you can make a whole lot of money, and you can change your life, and you don't have to be in a tough neighborhood, and you're going to make a whole lot of money. That education's priceless.
Then the money could be easy too, because like me, my furnace went out, the guy comes through, takes $1 bill, cleans off my sensor, pops it right back on. That'd be $100. Yeah, exactly.
The biggest scam in the world is, and my inspector taught me this, a lot of times, like if you got a kid, they hit the switch on the furnace, because it's a light switch. They think it's a light switch. So it shuts it down. You come to turn your furnace back on, it doesn't work. You're like, oh, it's broken. And you don't go check the switch. They come over, they flip the light switch, like $200 for me coming out. So if your furnace goes out, pro tip.
YouTube. I fixed mine. Literally, I couldn't get a good friend of mine because he was so busy. I just YouTubed it, and I fixed my house.
Nice.
And that's what made Mike realize he's really handy. And
that's when I thought I was
handy. Building.
Now I'm on a deck. Now I'm trying to patch up a deck. And
he's building a tiny house now.
Yeah.
For me, a tiny guy.
for one of your cars.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on. Lewis, I can't wait to watch your next fight and watch where your recent success, actually last 12 years of your success, but the recent big success of the Grand Prix takes you. I'm super excited.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. It's been a while. I've been watching everything Mike does with you guys, and thank you so much for coming on today. And love what you're doing with everything Chicago-based. It's John and I really love the city of Chicago, and the show was really kind of put together to push Chicago issues and push Chicago people. So I'm glad you're doing stuff, and I'm sure a lot of kids look up to you.
Yep.
Appreciate it, fellas.
And Mike, thank you for coming, buddy.
Finally.
You know, you are the type of guy who, like you said, since 19, you bought a house, you've been grinding, you're a firefighter. We obviously appreciate you doing that. Being a firefighter is one of those things that very few people are brave enough to do, and you guys, I think, should be paid. My dad always says this, you know, he's a physician. He says, we get paid enough, teachers, firefighters, first responders, please. You guys just don't get paid enough for what you do. You know, you're running into a building that's burning down while everybody else is running out. So thank you for that. And, you know, congratulations for a guy who, you're only 32. Mm-hmm. You have a ton of real estate investments. You have a bar still. It's called Mike's.
Mike's
so
Sports.
Check it out. First of all, I'm shocked I haven't drank there yet.
You know, I rarely drink. I quit drinking.
I know that's shocking because now I'm single and I do drink. And
Well, maybe I'll come back.
Yeah.
I haven't quit. I just want.
Your girl's gonna
I needed a
hate
break.
me when you just said that.
Which one? Which girl?
This is
I don't
actually
know that,
airing.
man.
This is actually airing live, so
Yeah.
you're gonna need
No
Lewis to
edits.
protect you now.
It's all right. I just shut my
but-
phone off.
But no, thank you for coming on, and thank you for not beating me up too much. And I'm glad there's somebody in the room finally that can beat
It's
you
an
up.
honor.
It never really happens. This might be the last time I'm ever in a room with you.
It's good.
Or
I'll be in the
somebody
room
else
with
can
him
be
this
on.
week, probably wrestling. So
But thanks again for coming on. And John, do we got anything for next? Oh, we're gone next week.
We're gone next week.
'Cause
Yep.
We're,
So
we're
we'll
actually
be
both
back,
on vacation.
Yeah. We'll be back in June.
So yeah, we'll be back 2 Wednesdays from now at 3:00. Thank you guys for listening. Like us, share us. Ask any questions you guys might have. There's a lot of people commenting because of Lewis and Mike, and we appreciate all the support. This was episode 53, and we'll see you guys. John, you got something?
Yeah, I do. I got one question. I've got a bunch, but I'll only ask once.
Oh, I didn't even ask you if you had questions.
No,
Ask
no,
questions. We
Lewis.
won't tune out.
I tell you what, I just want to go back real fast. Something you said that I think 100%, and get your take on it. People go to guns rather than fists. And I'm curious if you think a lot of that has to do with social media and everybody having their phone out recording fights. So if you get your ass kicked, you don't just get your ass kicked. It gets shown all over the place. Do you
World
think
star.
that has something to do with it?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that even gets a chance to play a part mentally. I just think mentally, as people enter the world and enter into have altercations, they don't have any self-esteem into their own ability. They want to intimidate people. They want people to be scared of them. So that's why they tend to want to always reach for a gun or to carry that persona or to exactly have some illusion that the streets love them or that they have to control, rep this street or this block or something that the government really owns.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, same thing. I mean, Southside guy. Growing up, we used to fight.
Yeah.
And now it's out of control. Every time you turn on the news, if it's less than 6 shootings, it's like, oh, it was a great day. Now it's like boom, boom, boom.
The funny thing about the whole shooting thing is the city's worse than you even think. Being on the fire department, we get stuff every single day you'll never even see in the news.
Really?
It won't even. I mean, sometimes on a good summer day in some of the worst part of the neighborhoods, there'll be 4 or 5 more shootings than you even heard of. Man. They're just covering something that reporter was easiest to get to, or like a big shooting or something. But we'll be on call. I think this is the biggest issue. We'll be on a call, and there'll be somebody filming us when there's somebody dying. Like, go take that.
Yeah.
You care more about filming what we're doing than actually helping that person before we got here. That's a serious issue.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Like I said, I got a bunch, but I know we ran late, so we can talk a little bit off air. But thanks so much for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Yeah,
man.
we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. That was an awesome episode, and thanks again for you guys for coming on.
For sure.
Cool.
We'll see you guys.
In 3, 2.